Everyone needs a little hero. Chapter 7. A little perspective. The day was a stormy one. Without windows, the borrower colony wouldn't have been able to tell, except for the faint thunder muffled by the walls and the flickering of lights in their own homes. Thankfully, borrowers were often overprepared for emergencies, so other forms of light kept their homes bright and warm. Hiro knew there wasn't much he could do for the humans when it came to the flickering lights, but that didn't stop him from wanting to check on his friends and the other people in the building. His siblings were all working on various tasks, particularly preparing for winter, even though it was months away. His oldest siblings, Atlas and Callie, were currently working with some thick yarn to make new comforters for themselves and any new family who may be moving into the apartment. His father, Casper, was taking stock of their supplies and planning what to use before it spoiled, while his mother, Prim, went out borrowing with Tyron, Hiro's next oldest brother. Winnie, the youngest, simply sat on the arm-crocheted comforter Atlas and Callie were working on. Hiro helped his father for a few hours before being dismissed to clean his room. Thankfully, the young borrower had already gone through and tidied up the night before. He even double-checked his lines and hooks, wanting to avoid another accident like what happened when he was with Sam. Admittedly, things could have been a lot worse, and, if Hiro was being honest with himself, the experience was a scary one, but not something he would turn down. Sam had been so gentle and careful, not only with him, but with keeping his secret. Still, Hiro wanted to at least pretend he was following the borrower rules and try to keep to the shadows during his hero work. Heroes didn't need praise for their work after all. After slipping on his borrowing pack and checking his equipment, Hiro set out. He had almost made it to the door when he heard his father call out for him.
"Hiro, where are you off to?"
Hiro felt his heart leap into his throat. His family hadn't questioned his comings and goings before, and he didn't want to lie to his father, of all things. He turned around, now seeing his siblings were also paying attention to the young borrower's answer, and thought up a genuine answer as fast as his mind could concoct. "I was going to get some more batteries for my side light and some other lights in the house. Mine are running low, and Mom said something about grabbing some while she was out with Tyron," replied Hiro. While this answer seemed to appease the family, there was an added second where they watched his reaction. Were they suspicious of him? Had they noticed something odd? Couldn't be. At least, Hiro thought he was being careful around his family.
"Well, be careful, and try to avoid the 5th floor. There's a human woman who has some interesting habits. Your mother and I went to check it out. I don't think it's anything dangerous, but it's suspicious," said Casper. Hiro nodded and smiled thoughtfully. "Yes, sir," he chirped, before spinning on his heel and heading out into the walls. "The 5th floor? A strange woman? Why? What makes her strange? There are some pretty weird humans out there. But, then again, couldn't the same be said about us? We do live in the walls, after all." Hiro shook his head as he focused on the task at hand. "Don't think about that now. If Dad and Mom are concerned about it, then I definitely should be, at least for now. Let's see what's higher up on the floors. I remember seeing batteries on one of the humans' desks. I wonder if they're still there." Rather than turning left or right, Hiro ventured straight to the lines that ran up and down the majority of the walls that towered above him. He was just about there when he heard another muffled clap of thunder. Human footsteps were loud more often than not, but thunder sounded like an immense giant slamming into the ground. The thought of a sentient creature larger than a human stomping about and making such a ruckus made him shiver. But he couldn't think about that now. Now, the young hero had to climb the line and needed to focus. Hand over hand, foothold after foothold, he scaled up one floor, then the next after a break,
and then one after that. Winded, he paused at the top and waited for his heart to stop pounding so hard before walking back through the halls and floor joists. There were only a few families who lived on this floor, and they often kept to themselves, so Hiro didn't see anyone while he walked along. The light at his side flickered and dimmed. The bright-eyed borrower had made the excuse of needing batteries to go out, but he didn't realize that his side lamp was so close to dimming. He quickened his pace to the apartment entrance, a floorboard knot that acted as a trapdoor, and ascended the ladder. The sounds of thunder and the natural sounds of the apartment seemed to be the only things Hiro could hear. He held his breath and opened the trap knot and listened again. Again, only the natural sounds of the apartment. Most likely, the human wasn't home, which was a good sign. Hiro lifted himself up, noticing he was under some sort of bookcase, and that the desk had moved from the corner of the room to a space by the window and the couch. All of the lights were off, and the only additional source of luminance were the candles on the desk and tables. Is the power out? No, couldn't be. The refrigerator is still humming. Just for fun? Hard to imagine a human sitting in the dark just for fun. Hiro crept out of the shadows, turning his side lamp off, and hurried along the edge of the wall, then dashed to the coffee table and the couch before pausing to prepare his hook. As he checked his hook and line, he noticed something by the edge of the desk. It was a bag, like a backpack. It wasn't that he hadn't seen a backpack before. In fact, Hiro preferred them over the side satchels any day because they were easier to run with. What caught the borrower's eye about the backpack were the patches and buttons on it. They weren't just any buttons. These looked like massive clothing buttons, just about as tall as Hiro. And something was odd about the patches. Hiro checked his surroundings, keeping his senses open, and walked up to the backpack. He was right. There was something odd about the patches. They were fake. The backpack itself didn't appear to have any holes in it, and the buttons themselves looked handmade. It almost looked like his own backpack, except the patches on Hiro's bag were because he actually needed them. With an odd look to the bag, he headed off to the desk. Why would a human have this? Wondered Hiro, as he made his way around one of the desk legs and began swinging his hook. Once, twice, thrice, zing. The hook flew from his hand, carrying the line with it. It clattered against the edge of the table and slid off. Hiro had to run to catch his hook so it didn't clatter as it hit the ground. Try again. He encouraged himself silently. He began swinging his hook again. Once, twice, thrice, zing. This time the hook barely caught the edge of the wooden table. Hiro tried his weight on it a few times before ascending the line. Every time he glanced down to make sure he had the right footing, his keen, bright green eyes caught sight of the backpack, and he wasn't sure why. It was almost unsettling how similar it looked to a borrowing bag. Hiro's fingers finally found the edge of the table, and, arms and legs shaking slightly, he rolled up on top of the desk and crouched, finding the nearest thing he could hide behind, which was a cup of pencils and brushes. The little borrower had just made it to his hiding place when a streak of lightning burst through the sky so bright it cast his shadow. The blinding light was followed by an explosion of sound so loud Hiro had to cover his ears. Perhaps I should have waited to come out. I hope Sam and Maggie are okay. Do they get scared of storms too? Hiro knew he needed to go check on them, but the batteries came first. He checked one more time before stepping out into the open in search of the batteries. This was the first time Hiro had a clear view of the desk. There was a closed computer. Sam explained how they worked, off to the side, as well as a couple of other strange rectangular boxes with buttons on them. Hiro recognized the triangle play button, but wasn't sure what the red dot meant. There was a cup of pencils and brushes he was hiding behind, but beyond that was some sort of small drawers with erasers, paints, and other supplies. In the center of the desk was a book with drawings on it. The hero was more interested in the small dressers, particularly in the top drawer, which looked like it had what he was looking for. Now, just needed to get into it. First things first, he decided to climb up onto the drawers. He couldn't pry it open and get into it if he couldn't reach it. With a quick roll of his shoulders, Hero grasped the plastic edges and, like a ladder, climbed up the side until he reached the top. The sandy brown-haired boy had just leaned over the edge and began pulling at the drawer when the drawing in the sketchbook caught his eye. The black and white pencil sketch took him by such surprise that he had to stand and tilt his head around to make sure he wasn't seeing things. The sketch was of a person, which wasn't the alarming part. The alarming part was the improvised pin sword at their side and the patchwork clothing they wore. The alarming part was the stitched bag and the fact the figure looked like there was a hook and string in their hands. The sketch was that of a borrower. Hero felt a surge of energy course through his body, ears ringing and feeling slightly lightheaded. This person had drawn a borrower, and accurately if Hero was being honest. The borrower boy abandoned his quest to retrieve the batteries from the top drawer and climbed back down hurriedly to get a better view of the sketch. The drawing was shaded, though the eyes still looked a little cartoonish, but the other fine details matched piece for piece. There were a few elements that seemed a little odd to him, though, such as the furry ears and mouse-like tails, but who was Hero to question what a human thought they saw? Hero tried to recall if the borrower looked like anyone he knew, and, thankfully, the answer was no. Still, what would inspire a human to draw something like this? Did the person know about borrowers? Had they been talking to someone? Were there other drawings? Curiosity overtook the borrower's mind as he walked to the edge of the page and lifted, being careful not to bend or tear the paper. Sure enough, there were other sketches. There was a variation of elements such as clothing style, age, and gender. All of them had furry ears and tails, sometimes furry feet too. The scenes were different as well. In some of the pictures, the borrowers were with a human, being held or carried, or simply just talking. Hero had nearly lost himself in the artwork when he heard a door open and close. The borrower nearly jumped out of his skin as he scrambled out from between the sketchbook pages and made a mad dash for the pencil cup. Just because they're drawing borrowers doesn't mean they won't try to keep me. Maybe that's how they learned how to draw us. Oh no, what if they try and keep me? Hero hoped that he wasn't noticed, but had scrambled out of sight in such a hurry that he didn't push the sketchbook pages back to the original picture. He covered his nose and mouth to stifle his heavy breathing when he heard something thud against the ground and a curious hum. The footsteps approached, faltering before arriving fully at the desk. What the... The sounds of that soft exclamation from what sounded like a boy made Hero's heart skip a beat. There were a few more footsteps, which ominously paired with another bolt of lightning and a crack of thunder. Hero didn't need to see the human to know he was to Hero's left. It suddenly hit him. Hero had left his hook and line at the edge of the table, and with a quick glance to his left, confirmed that the boy had found his line, as he saw a hand letting the thread run across his palm. There were sounds of shuffling and pages turning. Then, out of nowhere, the boy started talking in a low, soft voice. Hello. I don't know if you're here or not, but I hope you know I'm not going to try to hurt you. That's probably not much consolation. Well, I don't know. Saying it out loud sometimes helps. Hero leaned against the pencil jar, working up the courage to try and say something. Anything. I'm Watney, said the boy, as the sound of footsteps retreated from the desk. Do you have a name? Ugh, silly me. Of course you probably have a name, idiot. That last part of the sentence seemed to be directed at himself. Hiro wondered what he was supposed to say. What could he say? Should he say anything? He didn't have time as Watney continued talking. Do you like the drawings? I'm assuming you did. Or did they bother you? I'm sorry if that's the case, said Watney. Hiro finally managed to get his breathing under control and his thoughts in order. If this Watney guy knows about borrowers, then he should have an idea about the rules and be willing to answer some questions about how he knows about us. If that's the case, he won't want to keep me. I have to find out how he knows about us. If he's telling other people, then we're in trouble, in danger even. I need to make sure he's not telling anyone. It'll be okay. He didn't take my line, and I have my things. Whew, I can do this. Watney sighed and sounded like he was heading for the kitchen when Hiro peered around the jar and stepped out. The subtle motion instantly caught the boy's eyes. To Hiro, the boy looked to be around his oldest brother's age, if not a little older. He had auburn hair and pale blue eyes that, in an instant, seemed to absorb Hiro's entire frame. Whoa. The exhalation of Watney took on the single word, sending an instinctual shiver down Hiro's spine. Still, Hiro forced himself to smile, remembering that he may not be helping a human. He was helping a whole race of people. Hello, greeted Hiro, admittedly sounding a little more bashful than he wanted. He cleared his throat and straightened up before continuing. It's nice to meet you, Watney. My name is Hiro. Rather than approach, Watney crouched at an impressively slow pace and sat down on the ground so he could still partially see Hiro while also maintaining what Hiro thought to be a safe distance. Wow, said the auburn-haired boy, who was obviously trying to form words while his brain was visibly malfunctioning. I mean, gosh, sorry, that was rude of me. Yeah, nice to meet you too. You said your name is Hiro? That's an awesome name. Watching the flustered boy was admittedly amusing, and Hiro couldn't help but chuckle to himself, but also be slightly confused. Watney clearly was drawing borrowers, granted with some altered features such as the ears and tails. But if he knew about them, why was he acting so flustered? Thanks, said Hiro, daring to take a few more steps closer to the partially opened book. Watney, have you ever seen someone like me? Hiro was careful not to mention borrowers by name. For all the young Hiro knew, this was something that Watney thought he came up with himself. What, like you? No, but I'm not surprised. You're not supposed to be seen or known about, right? The question hit Hiro like a gut punch, and his confusion must have been apparent because Watney continued. Sorry, you're probably breaking all the rules just to talk to me. Gosh, sorry, I'm such an idiot. You've got to be freaking out. Hiro felt his confusion growing more and more. Watney hadn't met a borrower before, but he knew about the rules. He had some idea of how Hiro was feeling. How do you know about the rules? Do you know what I am? Asked the young borrower, daring to take a few more steps out onto the desk to get a better view of Watney. Watney, who had partially averted his gaze, glanced back up at Hiro before responding. Well, I mean, yeah, you're little, right? Hiro felt a wave of confusion pour itself into his already charged and muddled brain. A little what? Asked Hiro. No, I mean, yeah, you're little, but you're also a little, part of the book series? Prompted Watney. Hiro felt his head swirl. Wait, there are books? Asked Hiro. Yeah, they're by some guy named John Peterson. He wrote them ages ago, but they are about little people who live in the walls with mouse-like tails and improvised clothes. They go on adventures and aren't supposed to be seen or talk to humans. You've never heard of this? The more Watney explained, the more worried Hero got. But at the same time, he felt an excitement flutter in him. If humans know about these books, then they'll probably know what we're worried about. They'll know that we're smart just like them, and maybe, just maybe, they won't try to capture us. This might actually be a good thing, right? Hero remembered Watney had asked a question and hurriedly shook his head. No, I've never heard of them. But if it makes you feel better, you're right about the other things. Humans aren't supposed to know about us, and if possible, we're not supposed to talk to you if we are seen. I hope you can promise you won't say anything to anyone about this, right? Hero tried to sound friendly and inviting, knowing that his whole world depended on a handful of humans keeping their interactions and his species a secret. Yeah, no, absolutely. Lips sealed, you have my word, said Watney, a smile on his slightly freckled face. There were a few moments of silence before Watney awkwardly cleared his throat and continued. So I know it would be rude if I asked what you are and everything, but could I ask you something different? Well, more like an observation. Seeing that Watney seemed to understand more than most humans, he couldn't really see the harm in answering a few observations. He nodded, his sandy brown hair bobbing up and down, falling slightly into his eyes. Neat. Well, it's a little awkward, but you don't actually have a tail or fluffy ears, do you? Asked Watney. Hero felt a genuine smile tug onto his face as he shook his head. No, I don't have a tail or fluffy ears, replied Hero. I noticed that with all of your drawings. They're really good, by the way. You're really talented. Watney seemed to straighten up at this compliment. Thanks, but I'm nowhere near as good as other artists, he said dismissively. Hey, don't doubt yourself, encouraged Hero. Considering you're going off of what these books you talked about describe, you've got a lot of good details. Watney smiled again and shrugged. Well, thanks, said the auburn-haired boy. Hey, do you mind if I ask about, suggestions? Are the packs and tools okay? Hero nodded. Everything that I would usually bring with me, though it is a little dark, so I bring this little side lamp, confirmed the borrower. At this, he remembered why he originally came out and ventured into this apartment. Actually, Watney, would you mind if I borrowed some batteries? My light is running low, and I don't think it'll last the journey home. Oh yeah, of course. Is it okay if I get closer? Asked Watney, who was already in the process of standing up, hesitating for Hero's go-ahead. Sure, absolutely. You're the one helping me, said Hero. Thank you. Watney stepped forward, keeping his movement slow and obvious, like he were moving in slow motion, and opened the drawer. What kind do you need? Asked the auburn artist. The round kind? In all honesty, Hero didn't know there were so many different kinds of batteries. He knew what they looked like and which ones worked, but not what kind they were. Watney fished out a literal handful of different batteries and laid them on the desk a few inches from where Hero stood. The borrower's eyes widened, knowing this many batteries undoubtedly would power their home for several months. Still, he couldn't bring all of them home. He found a couple discs for his side lamp and one bigger kind called AA or AA, and slipped them into his bag. Thank you so much. This really helps, said Hero. Anytime, Hero, said Watney. Hey, if it's not weird or anything, do you think I could draw some sketches of you? Hero had to think about it for a moment before making up his mind. As long as you don't make them look too much like me, it should be okay. Remember, I'm supposed to be a secret. If you do, just make sure you close your book when you're done. The request seemed to be a reasonable one, and it thrilled Watney. Awesome. Well, you're welcome back any time, little man. Oof, sorry, was that weird? Asked Watney. Hero smiled and chuckled. No, it wasn't weird, big guy. Maybe it is weird. The joke, seemingly well received, left the two boys laughing for a few seconds before Hero elected to make his exit. Watney seemed like he wanted to offer Hero a literal hand, but was showing tremendous self-restraint as he watched Hero descend the line. Watney waved goodbye, knowing Hero wouldn't want to show where the hidden entrance to the walls were, and stepped into his room. Hero waited until he heard the door click before heading back to the bookshelf. This new information about littles opened up a whole new world of possibilities for the young borrower. If humans already knew about little people living in the walls and weren't already setting traps, maybe Hero was right all along, and humans weren't always capturing, rampaging, and trapping borrowers. Maybe, just maybe, they were also being let go and befriending the giants they lived with.